Hey, this episode of The Line is a special one to me. I was invited to Randy Blount's home, the CFO of BuildWitt. If you haven't heard of BuildWitt, you're really not following any social media on construction on the internet. They're a pretty big deal. He sat down and had a real and honest conversation talking about what BuildWitt is doing to invest in making the dirt world a better place. Also, talked about just how much it matters that we are all lifting the view of the skilled trades, which is really important to us here at Blackline. With that, in November, they have their summit coming out. And so they've asked us to invite you on their behalf, and we are going to be there. And so we want to invite you to attend the summit this year with us. If you can go to dirtworld.com and plug in Blackline 10, it'll give you a little bit of a discount, and it'll help lift the view of the skilled trades and make the dirt world a better place. And I promise you, as having attended one of these already, you will get the full value of your investment. And you'll learn things and hear from speakers that are top notch. Step up to the line.
Yeah.
All right. We all good to go, gentlemen?
All right. I apologize if we have a dog that barks or something.
Oh, dude.
We'll try not to.
Eric Jumper's podcast had a track loader in the background, driving really fast. So dog in the background, we don't mind. Well, here I am on the line with Randy. How do you say your last name?
You say it Blount.
Blount.
Yeah.
Randy Blount. So you're the CFO of BuildWitt, headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yep.
But we're here in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
So it is hot, so I don't know why you live here, because it's like, it's bad when the heat, you can feel it when you get in the car and the heat is trying to break into the car to get you. Like I could feel it when we were driving. Yeah. It's pretty intense.
Yeah. So you guys don't have tinted windows.
No, we do not.
In Arizona, you have to tint your windows. Like you just have to. The heat it's so bad.
Yeah.
So I can empathize. It's always like, why do you live here? Even I've lived here most of my life, pretty much my whole life. And still September is the month where you really, really, really question.
September?
Oh, yes.
Really?
Because September can still be over 110 sometimes.
Oh.
And everywhere else in the country, they're starting to get fall leaves. They're talking about, pumpkins and Halloween.
When we were driving here, I didn't see any leaves.
No.
I didn't even see any grass until we got to your place, and then you told me that was fake.
It is.
Yeah.
It takes a lot less water and it stays green.
I was going to ask, is there a lot of lawnmower sales going on around here? Yeah, I didn't think so. And that's the only part I'm a little jealous. I live on a small farm in Pennsylvania, and so I can spend anywhere from 3 to 6 hours mowing some weekends, and I find it very therapeutic, actually, because no one can call me, no one can bother me, because I'm on the mower.
Yeah.
But I was kind of jealous. I was thinking, I could just cover the entire field with stones, because that seems to be what you guys do here.
Yes, there is lots of rock here. It takes less water. And people don't know this, but Arizona is actually incredibly efficient with our water. So like...
you said inefficient.
Efficient.
Okay.
Yes, efficient. I think in 50 years, our water consumption has not increased. Part of that's because it's shipped away from agriculture. And then a lot of these homes, they have what they call xeriscapes. So, no grass. It's just all desert plants and rocks. Not pretty to me.
Yeah.
There's some people who really appreciate it, but not my thing. I'd much rather have a farm in Pennsylvania. But
well, the temperature is a little different there in the sense of it's very humid right now. Like when we were headed out here, it's definitely hot here. Like when I was searching for the rental car at the airport, and it didn't feel like a parking garage. It was the first time I ever felt like a chicken wing. Like I felt like I was in an oven. Yeah.
I tell people that it's a different heat. It feels more like a blow dryer or an oven.
That's a great way to describe it.
Like you open it and so a breeze isn't nice here. Where in the humidity, a breeze can kind of cut the edge off the temperature.
Yeah,
it's not happening here. It's gonna be hot.
So you've lived here most of your life, if not your whole life, like you said.
Yeah.
And you've always, up until recently, I would say in the past 3 or 4 years, maybe, you've always been in heavy civil.
Pretty much, So I was born in Hobbs, New Mexico, which most people don't know where it is. And
You should Google that, Hobbs, New Mexico.
and I don't blame you because it's not much. My dad, he drilled oil wells, so he dropped out of high school. My mom got pregnant, and he needed to go make a living, so he headed to West Texas and was drilling oil wells. And Hobbs, New Mexico, was the closest hospital. So
Okay.
born there, spent the first 2 years of my life in Texas. Can't recall any of it, and then
Right.
Texas, the oil boom died out in the 80s. And so he came back here and started working in trucking and then moved into heavy civil. So I've been around trucks probably, I don't know, somewhere around 6 to 8. My grandfather had a trucking business.
Okay.
And then...
You got something in common with Horst over here. His dad had trucking business.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he had a hard time working with his dad.
Yeah.
And his brother, and I think he just decided it would work better for him to go do something else. And so he started in the civil business, and then his brother actually ended up leaving and doing that as well. And so I think the first time I ever drove a vehicle was on a job site, and it was a water truck. And it was funny.
That's not tiny.
No, it's not. But it's funny because it does just show the difference. Like, people talk about how kids, these kids these days aren't ready to come out and work in the trades. Well, we also could allow kids to do that.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sure it wasn't, technically legal or something, but it also wasn't a big deal. Like, the GCs
No, it
knew
was not a big deal.
I was there working. They all thought it was a good thing that I was there working. So yeah, at 12, water trucks have a power takeoff. And so you can just let off the clutch, and if you're in the right gear, you don't even have to give it gas, and it just takes off. So I thought, because of that, I knew how to drive a stick shift. So the first time I got in a stick shift car, I thought, I have this figured out. No, I stalled that so bad.
Now, how old were you when you got in a stick shift car then?
Oh, I was, I probably drove a water truck as young as 12, and I probably didn't get in a stick shift car until I was 16.
Yeah, well, every 16-year-old boy thinks that he knows how to do everything. I mean, at least I did, and my son does as well.
Yeah,
if you're listening, yeah.
I have a 14-year-old son, and it must be something that's in the water. I don't know. It unlocks that. So.
Well, the water is more potent here because you guys aren't using it the way you used to. So.
Herb Sargent, he shared with me a Mark Twain quote. It said something like, "When I was 14, my dad was ignorant. By the time I was 21, he had learned a lot." And it's so true.
Yeah.
I even reflect back, like, I remember arguing with my dad about stuff, and I look back, and I think, man, I should have listened to that guy a little bit more.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I'm living that with my son all the time, and he's great. We have, this is his first summer actually working on the job with one of our sister companies doing construction.
Yeah.
And, he's 16, so he worked over the summer, and I would drive him to work because he doesn't have his license yet.
Yeah.
And so we had many a great conversation, but it is funny when he's telling me how things work sometimes. So that's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
So
I actually didn't think I was going to be in construction, really. So go finish high school, decide I was going to go serve a mission for my church. I go and do missionary work in Brazil and in Florida. I learned Portuguese. I took Spanish in high school and college, get to learn and speak some Spanish. Finished that up, and it was a great experience for me. I tell people there's something that matures you spending time in another country.
yeah,
And also helps you recognize where true happiness comes from. Like living with people who have nothing and still are smiling and laughing more than us who have so much is really, really powerful. So if you're young and you have an opportunity to go to another country, teach English, do missionary work, do Peace Corps work, that's my plug for it. It's great.
yeah,
So glad I did it. Come home and I think, well, I'm going to go to college. No one in my family had graduated college. So I'm like, I'm going to be the guy that makes it through college. I'm going to go do this. And my degree was in agribusiness. So like I used to have a born to farm license plate on my truck. I wanted to be a farmer.
Wow.
So I had this infinity for like.
What do you farm in Arizona? Like what grows here? Cactus? Like I mean,
so citrus. We have 19 citrus trees on our property. So citrus is one of our C's. So
wow.
Some of the C's in Arizona are cattle, citrus, cotton, copper, and climate. Those are the 5 C's of Arizona. So, but we also are famous for Durham wheat. Our wheat gets shipped to Italy to make pasta.
Really?
Something about our wheat. And then
this is an educational podcast.
Pima cotton, we're famous for Pima cotton as well. So there's quite a few. It's not your traditional, tomatoes and
right.
that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm from Pennsylvania, so agriculture is very, very different than that. So
well, and then Yuma is the salad bowl, right? So Yuma produces more lettuce than I think anywhere else in the country.
Wow.
So you can farm here, I guess is the point. And I thought I was going to be a farmer, and then I realized I really liked the financial side of it. So my degree is in agribusiness finance, actually. And I thought I was going to go be a commodity trader.
Okay.
But that's about the time my dad got sick.
Okay.
And so I was like, hey, you know what? I'll keep helping out the family. My dad's sick. He got a staph infection in his knee, was bedridden, and then had shoulder surgery. And then next thing you know, he's battling cancer. Okay. And so it ended up being his health wasn't good for probably about 4 years before he passed away.
Wow.
And, in some ways I felt like I got in the construction business because I had to. Like it was like, hey, you're the oldest son. You have to do this. If you fell, you fell your family. So it was a little bit heavy.
Wow. Yeah, that's not a lot to put on your shoulders.
Yeah. But it was also good because there's times that I don't know if I would have stuck with it, but I didn't feel like I had a choice. And then I came to realize, no, I actually really like this.
Yeah.
Like I really, really enjoy a challenging project.
Yeah.
Like the guys would come to me and say, hey, we're looking at this job and it's going to be one you like. I'm like, tell me why. And then they start kind of just laying out all the complexity.
What is it about the complexity that you enjoy? What do you see when you see that complexity?
A few things. One, solving problems is fun.
Yeah.
2, I think so often people get scared. Like their response to a problem is, let's charge more because there's more risk.
Yeah.
And rightfully so, because there generally is more risk. To me, it's, hey, if we can manage this risk, the opportunity is really good.
Yeah.
And so I like it. We got to where we were doing more complex projects, but consistently outperforming the market from a profitability standpoint, like significantly. So I think that's why.
That's pretty good. And I researched a little bit some of the projects that Blount was doing, and some of them seemed normal, but then you guys were getting into, I'm trying to remember what it was, like deep core foundations.
Yeah, so we were just a move dirt company.
Yeah,
strictly. That's where we started.
So that would have been the multifamily stuff that I read about.
Yeah,
yeah. And then you went into.
Yep. So we said, hey, we're just moving dirt. That's kind of where we started. And then after my dad passed away, I was like, how do we diversify the business? We started looking at different sectors, and so we're still moving dirt primarily, and then we started coming into this basement work and these foundation jobs where there was earth retention systems or shoring systems and foundations. And then one of my favorite projects was a tunnel project that we did.
And what experience did you guys have in this when you started getting into this stuff?
Not really any.
Okay.
No.
I was just curious. And so with doing that, obviously you had a team at this point.
Yeah.
So how do you sell the team on, hey, we've never done this before. It's risky, but we're going to do it. Like, how did you do that? Or didn't you sell them? You just did it and drug them along.
That's a good question. I wish somebody was here because looking back, I don't remember having to sell a bunch to do it.
Let me rephrase it. Sell's not the right word. How did you get, because you should never sell to your team.
Yeah.
But how did you get buy-in?
Yeah. I think it was just, it's weird saying stuff like this out loud because I don't feel comfortable saying it. but I think I just have a bit of a gift for seeing what a project can be. And so, we would be bidding on a project. Somebody come to us and say, yeah, there's this basement on this project. Well, we subcontracted out the shoring work once or twice.
Okay.
So, we worked with people who knew how to do it, and ultimately they were traveling here from outside the state. So then I went back to our team like, hey, let's see if we can create a different relationship with that company where we can be more competitive in our marketplace, but they can still benefit. And it didn't work out. Like, we were going to try and supply labor. They were a union shop. This is a non-union state. We're like, hey, we'll supply the labor, you supply management, and see if we can work something out. Didn't work out. And I think by that point we had done 2 of those projects, and our team felt like, you know what, this work is within our wheelhouse. We were managing it already. And so
you got to see it done a couple of times.
Yeah. And then we just got more and more complex. I mean, the first time we did a tunnel, it was underneath an active hospital. Yeah.
Wow.
And so we didn't do it ourselves.
You do like risky, don't you?
So we didn't do it ourselves. We did all the shoring work, but then we brought in a sub and said, hey, we're going to partner together. We used our expertise, our relationships, and then we tunneled. And it was funny, that tunneling contractor had people who even told us, you could do all this work. You guys have the expertise here. And we're like, yeah, probably not going to learn on a tunnel underneath the hospital.
Probably wise.
So we didn't.
What do you think, you talk about you love problem solving, and I find that interesting with complex situations, problems, issues. And it's really funny because your entire career is problem solving, and we're going to get to it, but you've picked a pretty big problem to go after recently. Yeah. But what do you think it is that is the secret ingredient? I mean, you talk about, breaking things down and look at them, and you're talking about your expertise that they saw that you guys had, and I'm curious if that's in the work or if it's in the way that you approach the work.
That's a good question. So we recently hired a project manager who worked with me at Blount. He's at BUILDWITT now, and he's doing.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, he's doing product management there. So
Okay.
he was a project manager. Now he's helping me product manage our software product.
I love that you brought someone from the trade into your business with a software product, like people that know what it is that they're doing here.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we say, and this isn't a knock because we have great engineers and they are needed, but we think it's easier to find great engineers right now.
Right.
That wasn't the case a few years ago, but it's easier right now to find great engineers. So we said, how do we build on our great engineering team that we have? We need to bring in people who have better industry experience. And so this project manager, I'm like, he actually had a degree in information systems.
Wow.
And ended up in the trades and was there for 10 years. And so, I instantly thought of him.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I still actually have a non-compete in place. So I couldn't hire him. So I had to, this is funny. So I had to.
You do know this goes out on the internet, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I've told everybody, I've been very transparent about this. I posted something publicly.
Yeah.
And I told my wife, I was like, there was one person that
Come
I was
on.
hoping
Come
would
on.
respond.
That's
and
awesome.
obviously we had more than one person.
Right.
But on a Saturday, he texted me and said, hey, what are you doing? I'd like to catch up. And I was like, well, I didn't want to read too much into it because I was like, he could just want to catch up because we were friends and stuff. So we catch up. But I tell my wife, I'm like, you need to come with me because I need a witness. So if somebody thinks I was like intentionally poaching him, that you can know and you can be like my witness that I was just going there to catch up with him and I had no intentions and stuff. But anyways, so it worked out where it was a good fit for him. It was a good transition for him. And then he complements our current team's experience really well.
That's awesome.
So we were sitting in there and we're in a meeting and he's there and we're talking through a software problem. And they're talking about this issue and how it is that we can take some of the data we have to create a metric to influence this algorithm that we're designing for the training product. And they're struggling with it. And I pause and say, well, what if we just look at assignments overdue? And we use that as the indicator for this metric. And they all paused and said, yeah, that's really simple. Why didn't we think of that? And so I don't know what it is, but it does seem like there's something about the way my brain works.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just I'm not as intelligent as everyone else. And so I just break it down into these like real simple.
That's one of your core
blocks.
values, right? Keep it simple.
Keep it simple, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep it stupid simple.
Yeah. I think it's Elon Musk that said that some of the best engineers can create a solution for something that shouldn't exist.
Yeah. Well, he's the one who's like the law of subtraction or something. He talks about, I don't know what exactly his saying is, but it's something about like you should be subtracting 20% of your process.
He
like,
said
all the
if you're not subtracting, I think something like 10%, 20%, and if you're not adding things back in, then you're not taking enough out.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah. I don't know that I'm that good at it, but I think it's kind of at that root. So I'm not positive what it is about problem solving that we do well, or I have done well in the past, and I hope to continue to do well in the future. But I think it has something to do with keeping it simple and finding a way to like, hey, seems like a big problem. Well,
Yeah.
what's the root of it? Let's go after that first, and then let's go after the next thing.
I think keeping it simple is part of it, but I also think grit.
Oh, yes.
Like, those projects that you're talking about and the things that you're talking about, they can seem overwhelming.
I can assure you they do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's nothing like we were at Arizona State University.
Mm-hmm.
We're building ISTB4, so a technology building, technology science building. And we're installing foundations, and we have one that we start pouring and the cage moves. And so we have to get it out. So you're now drilling through rebar and concrete to get it out, and just like, I'll have to show you pictures. Like
I will hold you to that.
Chunks of rebar coming out. It's the middle of the night, and like everybody feels defeated.
Yeah.
Because it's thousands upon thousands of dollars in material, and it's thousands upon thousands of dollars removing it.
Yeah.
Just to be able to fill the hole in with a flowable fill so you can drill through it again to put in thousands and thousands of dollars.
That's like the ultimate defeated.
Oh, it's
feeling.
so bad.
Oh, my word.
It's so bad. So those guys who worked on that crew, man, I would go to battle with them anywhere because the staying power to go build something when things get bad was incredibly impressive. And shout out to them because they had some tough projects, and somehow they still believed in us becoming, foundation contractors.
I think that's one of the big things that I see in different people. And it's like when I see that grit, that staying power, that ability to look past the despair and the discouragement, those are the people that I want on my team.
Yeah. Rich Davini, have you read any of his stuff?
No.
He has a book called The Attributes. You should check it out.
Okay.
So Rich Davini ends up, he's a friend of Simon Sinek's now.
Okay. Well, I love his books.
Yeah. And Simon Sinek, when he talks about going to learn about SEAL Team 6 and selection process, it's usually...
he'd be a great guy for Dirt World, I'm just saying. He's a little thing that they do.
He's going to be... I'm not even going to say for sure, but I think he's on a very short list for 25.
Okay, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. He's also in consideration for the Connect product, which just barely launched.
I know. I saw that just recently.
Yeah. So an online, it's just a little online, it's an online community. It's basically Jason and Dan, they break it down like this. Dirt World, once a year, workshops, multiple times a year, Connect, multiple times a week, training every day.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like we can hopefully help people on that journey of getting better with whatever cadence works the best for them.
That's awesome. This is a perfect time for me to ask you this question. This is a softball.
Okay.
What is something that Randy can't live without? And let me narrow it down for you. Like a piece of gear, that would be like a clothing or some piece of gear that you can't live without, or a tool, one of those two things. What are one of those things that's the only thing that you can have on planet Earth? Yeah. Which one is it?
That's hard. The only thing on planet Earth that's hard. If you just said what's something that you use every day.
Yeah.
The joke is it's a black shirt.
I see that.
I wear a lot of black shirts. And
I love black. It's my favorite color.
It's funny because how it came about was my dad was a firm believer, if you go on a job site, you need to work with the people. So even when we were doing, nearly 100 million in revenue, if I came out on a job site, not every job site, because I didn't have the time, but you better believe at least once a month I was working. And even if I was there and I wasn't working, it was very common for me to move towards the piece of equipment and trying to figure things out. And so I just started ruining shirts. And do we need to pause? I can hear that noise. You're good? Okay, cool. Yeah. Sorry.
And we don't pause. Once we start, it's all the way.
Okay.
I know that he said we can edit things out, but he lied. So, yeah.
So black shirt. So I was ruining shirts, and I'm like, I'm tired of ruining shirts with grease, with dirt. I'm just going to start wearing black. And then next thing you know, it's just that's what I'm doing. I'm wearing black shirts, and it's kind of become a joke at BuildWitt because I'm the guy who comes on with a dark beard and a black shirt. And when I started at BuildWitt, I was almost only doing financial.
Okay.
And now I'm helping with financial, but really focused in on
software,
yeah. Chief product officer. So,
okay.
So it was the joke that I was like Rip from Yellowstone. Like I would come on.
Oh, I can see that.
I would come on
if
dark.
Rip was kind and nice and yeah.
I would come on like dark clothes, dark beard, and I was trying to whip everyone in shape financially. That was a tough transition. Aaron does a good job of talking about it, but the reality is that we were not going to be solvent if we didn't make changes and big changes.
Right.
And so we ultimately had to make a lot of tough changes, and some of those tough changes were around people, which stunk.
Yeah, it does.
But it was like one of those times where you have to say, how do we take care of the whole?
Yeah.
And we had to do right by them. And so that meant we had to let go of people because we didn't hire right, or we grew too fast with our people, and all kinds of stuff.
Really difficult. Like, how do you deal with that? Like, because they're not bad people, but you had to let them go because of. I remember years ago, I had a situation like that, and I love old movies. I watch them with my boys all the time, like the old John Wayne movies and whatnot. And we watched, I think it was like Midway or something like that.
Yeah.
And the captain had to seal a part of the ship that there were men in order to save the rest of the ship. Which can feel, in my opinion, it can feel a lot like when you have to let someone go, because it's like, sorry, there's not a place for you here anymore, because we have to make that decision for the whole. How do you deal with that as a leader? Because that's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. I think what you have to experience it.
Mm-hmm. So that sucks.
It sucks. But what I'm confident in is if you do it and you are as caring as possible, which looks probably different for everybody. I'll actually talk you through how I let somebody go, because I do think this is a lesson I've learned through having to do this a lot over 20 years.
Okay. Well, is this? Are you getting ahead of it here?
What do you mean?
Because I'm still going to ask you a question at the end.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I would say,
because I think this would be really good for people to hear, including myself.
Yeah. So one, I would say, once you've gone through it, and if you truly are trying to be caring.
Yeah.
And at BuildWitt, we've offered severance even when it wasn't necessarily the best financial decision for us.
Yeah.
But we wanted to make sure people could say, hey, they might be upset, they might be emotional about it, but we were fair.
Yeah.
So that was important to us.
Yeah.
But I would say if you're caring and try and help people land in the best place for them.
Yeah.
You would be shocked. You maybe wouldn't be shocked, but if you go back and look at the BuildWitt family online, when we let somebody go, we were supporting them the best we could. We were doing introductions.
I've seen that, actually.
We were doing everything we could. We would say, hey, you should talk to this person. Benjamin's not here anymore.
Yeah.
We have nothing but we hope Benjamin succeeds. We love what he's doing. There is enough room in this industry for people to do this
Come on.
work.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just on letting people go, because I've talked with even the people at BuildWitt about this. For me, letting somebody go, whether it's because of performance or because of laying off, whatever, it's not going to be fun.
No.
And the person receiving that news generally has enough emotional intelligence. They know it's happening almost instantly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so oftentimes we try and spend way too much time talking about why we made the decision and all this. And
That's what always gets me in trouble.
yes.
I try to explain myself too much, and
Yeah.
they're not in an emotional state that they can actually understand that.
So this is how it works for me. I say, hey, HR's here. I'm sure your emotional intelligence is saying something's wrong. And you're right, it is. I have made the incredibly difficult decision to let you go. This is my promise. Take a day or two, send me an email, ask me specific questions about what it is you can improve on. I will gladly give you the most detailed feedback you have ever received. And if possible, I will write you a recommendation letter. But take the time to be thoughtful so that this can be an opportunity for you to grow. I'm going to jump off the call now because I want you to work through HR. She's going to do everything, or he's going to do everything they can to make this crappy situation be the best possible. She's going to help you figure out your benefits, your severance, and make sure you can transition the best way possible. And I'll be here as a resource. You have my email. Reach out to me, and I'll be glad to give you that feedback.
Randy, that's really good.
And that's it. And it feels alarmingly short.
Yeah.
But I have never had one go long that goes well, because
Boy, that's the truth.
they just, you start running circles in your head.
Yeah.
And then you start second guessing, why did we make this decision? And
Right.
so I find it's just, and you know what's a shame though? This is what's a shame. I've been doing that for years now. Do you know how few people take me up on it and actually send me that and say, I really want to know
That is a shame.
what to do to get better.
That is a shame.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that is, it's really difficult. And it even goes to something I wanted to ask you about that, because if you're in leadership, inevitably at some point, you're probably going to have to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important to recognize, and this is something that I've learned, is in leadership, you need to develop really thick skin, because you are the point person in that moment, not HR, not anyone else. It's just you. And different people react differently. And some people don't say a lot, and some people, they say way too much, and in their emotional state go to places that I'll say are dark. I think it's really important for leaders, for us to be aware of that situation, and that they're not them in that moment, and to extend grace, in that moment, because it's like you can tend to go back after that meeting. But I cannot believe that he or she said that. I can't believe that they think that of me. Because it can get intensely personal sometimes. And I mean, think about it. When you're laying somebody off like that, or you're telling them that there's not a place for them anymore, there are 1,000 questions. And in the best case scenario, they see it coming before you actually sit down for the meeting, but they don't always.
Yeah.
And when they don't, and then they can react in that way, I think it's really important for us as leaders to recognize that they need like a free pass. And that means that you have to forgive. You have to deal with, maybe some of the things they said were true, because the deal is we aren't going to do everything right. We're going to make mistakes in how we do that. I just think it's really important, in addition to what you're saying, that we recognize that we have to have grace for people in the midst of that emotional state.
Yeah. Yeah. So I agree. And I think one of the things I will tell people often is, hey, this is emotional for you, and it's okay. We're humans.
Yeah.
And if I'm in your shoes, it's emotional for me.
Yeah.
So I get it. The other thing I'd say is being caring is so one of my highlights from this year, would it be this year? It might have been right at the end of last year. I don't know. I had to let somebody go at BuildWitt who was in product.
Mm-hmm.
An incredible human being, but I could tell they weren't happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell that the stress of the job was getting to them like emotional well-being.
Yeah.
And so I had to let them go. But when I did almost the exact same thing I told you, but I also said, and if you're okay with it, I would like to check in with you weekly. So every week,
Wow.
I checked in with them. Just said, hey, how you doing? What's going on? And I got like the best text. He found a job.
That's awesome.
Celebrated the job. It was good. Then I just said, hey, I'm going to keep checking in every month. And I've checked in every month now for a little while. And just out of nowhere, he just sent me a text and just said, hey, I want you to know I really, really enjoyed working with you and the leadership that you showed me through that. And I was like, wow, like
that had to feel pretty good.
it felt good because like it's not very often that people recognize how hard it is to let someone go and validate how hard you're trying to be caring.
Yeah.
So it felt really good to like literally probably one of the top 10 business like experiences I've had.
Yeah. Well, and I would just say if you're listening to this and you're hearing Randy talk about all this stuff, it can tend to feel like, wow, you just do it all right.
No.
And it's like, I think it's really important if you're listening and you're a leader and you've let someone go and it hasn't gone this way. What you need to do is, that recognizing those things and recognize the next time that you're going to do it differently.
Yeah.
Don't spend a lot of time thinking about your failures and how you messed it up. Write down what you want to remember and what you want to know you don't want to do again. Take that and pocket that away for the next time. And I think, how did you say it? You want to be kind,
Caring, yeah.
Caring. You said caring. And I mean, I think that's probably the most important thing is in the midst of it is being caring and then not explaining or saying more than you should.
Yeah.
Because you get in that hamster wheel where it just goes round and round and round. And that actually doesn't even help the person's emotional state at all.
Well, and also because they're acting out in emotion, they don't have time to formulate good questions. Like it really is so you think of Radical Candor written by Kim Scott. And
I
she
love
talks,
that book.
Oh, it's so
it's
great.
a great book.
So she is confirmed for 25.
You're kidding.
No, I'm dead serious.
Okay. This stuff goes out. So like people are going to hear this, right? Okay. Before 25, we're not waiting to post this podcast.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
She's confirmed. If I'm wrong, Dan,
You're getting me to sign up for 25 already. So
yeah, if I'm wrong, Dan will get me on it. There's a few that I know that are 25 that I'm super excited.
That's all right. You can just talk to Dan about how we all have to mail in our ballots this year. So
exactly, I know. 25 also has what's his name from the Savannah Bananas?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know his name, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
I'm embarrassed that I can't remember his name.
I'm glad that you have a failure here on the podcast. It just makes me feel like more of a normal person. So
Yeah.
you were having it all together.
I think it's something Cole. But
we're
I
sitting
can't
on these
remember
white chairs in this beautiful room, and you're saying everything so perfectly. So that's great.
Well,
something Cole. That's what he said.
Just I think you brought a good point. Hey, we're talking about how to do it right.
Yeah.
The only way I have arrived there, and it's not perfect, is tons and tons and tons of mistakes. I don't want to say the word. I've made royal mistakes in my career countless times, and somehow I've been able to get up and go back at it. Like I joke that my football coach, when I played football, we were never the biggest or fastest. Well, we might have been close to the fastest because he made us work so hard, but we definitely weren't the biggest and most athletic. But man, we would just run into the same wall over and over and over again. And soon enough, it would break down. And I think that's what I'm super grateful for. And also just seeing my dad's work ethic.
Yeah.
Like, man, my dad could work hard. And I saw that and I saw what it unlocked. I mean, he didn't even graduate high school, and he had a $3 or $4 million earthwork business when I started getting involved.
Wow.
So I have made so many mistakes.
So not to drill down on this too much, but I think it's really good. So you talk about those mistakes and doing it wrong. And you talk about, pushing through and getting yourself back up and all that. But we're glossing over something that I think is really important here. The ability to learn something from it and not just get up and be like, well, they're ridiculous. Because there's two ways to go through this. You can make those mistakes and have those situations and And I've been in those situations, and it's like, it is very easy to be like, that's their fault.
Yeah.
You know, or, oh my goodness, they acted like that. Well, I made the right choice. I mean, what is it, if you can, try to articulate or identify when you got yourself back up, how was it that you learned from it instead of just pushing it away? Does that make sense, what I'm asking you?
It does. I'm thinking if I can articulate this well. I think I would sum it up with this phrase that comes from Jocko: control the controllables.
Your eyes are like staring into my soul right now. So like, come on.
Control the controllables.
Control the controllables.
Yeah. So to me, I can't control anybody else. I can't do anything about how they react. I can only control me. And so whenever there's a mistake, the easy thing would be is like, well, this person left the company. Well, clearly, you know, we all do this. Somebody leaves the company and all of a sudden we start pointing out all their faults. Right?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it is good that they leave. But I always want to ask, what could have we done different?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's, hey, when we let that person go, they clearly got emotional, they yelled, and okay, but what could we have done different? Well, I can't control how they reacted, but what can we do different?
That's good.
I think controlling the controllables, which is almost always me or my organization or my team, is the secret to working through problems. Because no matter what we do, we will be presented with problems.
Yeah.
And we just can't control that. Like, you know, none of us foresaw COVID. So we could have just decided, especially where you guys were at, the lockdown was crazy, right?
Yeah.
So we could have just decided, hey, we're done.
Yeah.
The government ruined it for us. Or you can control what you can control, and you make the best of it. It was really tough, but you made it through it.
Well, you want to talk about, I share that love of problems and finding solutions.
Yeah.
And COVID was 100% that. 100% that.
It was a crazy time.
I actually think it was a great time to be alive because we experienced something that I don't know that anybody had experienced before.
Yeah.
In 100 years or more. And never like that because the world was so connected. But
yeah, it was a fascinating time.
So this is a great time to segue into the question that I wanted to ask you. So, you know, you're running a $100 million company. Was that accurate? Is that what it was?
The division we got acquired, and the division was doing about $100 million in revenue when I left.
Okay. $100 million when you left.
We had about 253 employees.
And I shared a quote that I read that you said, and maybe you didn't say it, you don't remember it, but what I read was that when things are good, it's a good time to change. Mm-hmm. And so you sold the company, and I'm assuming things were good based on some of the things that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And so you made a decision to go to BUILDWITT. Mm-hmm. Why?
It's interesting. So I decided to invest in BUILDWITT because I felt like I wanted to give back to the industry that had given me what I had, all that opportunity, the business that I had built, you know, the financial freedom that we had gained. I wanted it to be better for the people that were still in the industry.
Yeah.
So I invested in BUILDWITT. I actually didn't plan on really leaving Blount. It was just kind of, Clyde was really good to me. They treated me really well, but there became kind of a bit of a difference in opinions. Mm-hmm. And my opinion didn't feel super valued. Mm-hmm. And you know, I was the only executive in Arizona, and I knew our market quite well. And once I wasn't feeling valued, it was kind of hard to show up.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it ended up being good. You know, I show up at a board meeting at BUILDWITT. They're struggling financially. And it was kind of thrown out like, hey, could you help us here? And I was like, yeah, sure. And that's almost been 2 years ago. So, you know, why am I still here when maybe I don't need to be working? A few things. One, I turned 39 this year, and it turns out there's not a lot of 39-year-olds who aren't working. So it gets boring. Two, it was just there was a reaffirmation that I love business. I love solving problems.
Yeah.
Reading Everybody Matters. I realized I always thought I want to serve the community through church, and I want to serve the community through all these organizations, and I can.
Right.
But my sphere of influence is exponentially bigger.
Yeah.
From BUILDWITT.
Yeah.
And
it's pretty big, by the way. I was researching you before we sat down.
I don't know about that, but like I pray on a pretty regular basis that I can help make the world a better place.
Come on.
It is a serious desire of mine. And because of that, I've been on the stage at BUILDWITT things and been more vulnerable than I've ever been comfortable being, because I believe I can help somebody.
Come on, Randy.
And so I think that's why I'm here, because I think being here, I can use the gifts that God's given me to make the world a little bit better. I can help people avoid some of the mistakes I've had. And one of our core values at BUILDWITT is also lighten up. So we do have some fun. Get to have some fun, and I get to solve problems. So I think all of that culminates to I'm here, I'm enjoying it. I plan to be here for quite some time. So we're going to go just keep making the world a better place.
I love what you're sharing there. One, it resonates with me. I love that, I grew up in the church, and I thought that I needed to be a missionary, and I didn't understand to be about what I thought I should be about. I didn't understand that you can be about making the world a better place wherever it is that you are.
Yeah. Yeah. What's Dabo Sweeney? So he's on Ed Milet, and one of my favorite podcasts, and he talks about the grass is greener where you water it, and I just love it. I'm like, the grass isn't greener on the other side; it's greener where you water it. Yeah. So water it where you stand.
Well, I don't know if it's a Phoenix thing. I was going to be sitting down with Justin Martin at Corbin's, great company here in Phoenix.
Yeah, and
he has a quote that he lives his life by. I'm going to see if I can get it right. A Jordan Peterson quote, which my team and I, we were talking on our way here about this quote and how annoying it was that he's proclaiming this, because it's like, crap, that's how we should live, but wow, that sounds really hard. And I'm trying to remember, I don't know if I'll be able to remember exactly, but it was Jordan Peterson, and he says that you should pick the biggest burden that you can carry in life. Carry the most in order to make the world a better place. And that's what Justin has as his mantra. And I'm like, they have 1,000 electricians. I'm thinking he has a pretty big burden. Come on, man. And this is just a call out, I'm in Phoenix and you're not here. So whatever.
Yeah. It also says I'm the backup plan.
Absolutely.
Which I will be the backup plan anytime.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate what you're saying, because I think, honestly, if more of us can get a hold of, and obviously my beliefs really come into it, but I think regardless, when you are about serving others, life feels good, even when it's hard. We go back to at Blount, those guys who were working through the night with the rebar and all that stuff, and their staying power, you said. They were there for not themselves. They were there for others. Yeah. And it's like, when you do that, I remember years and years ago, I watched a movie called Black Hawk Down. And in that movie, there's these operators, special forces guys. And I'm trying to remember the name of the actor, but I can't. But he made a comment, and they're like, well, why are you doing this? And he goes, I'm doing it for the guys that are here. And it's like, that's what we need to be about wherever we are. If you're on the job site, if you're in the boardroom, wherever it is, it should be about the people that are there. Because if your focus is you and what you can get out of it, then you're going to miss the fulfillment, because it doesn't matter what size house you live in. It doesn't matter when you can retire or anything like that. And quite honestly, you might find that retirement isn't fulfilling, because I believe that you're made to serve other people. I believe that's what I'm made for. I believe that's what you're made for. I believe we all are that way. And when we do that, it actually doesn't just make the dirt world a better place. It makes the world a better place for all of us.
Most certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think our mission is make the dirt world a better place, but inevitably that improves the world.
It does.
And that's a good. And you know what's amazing? The amount of good people that I have been able to get connected with over this.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. My wife, she last year she got this crazy weird infection. Like Friday she has a headache.
I remember reading about it in one of your posts, and then we were talking on the phone one day.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like she has a headache on Friday, some congestion. Saturday it's feeling pretty bad. My daughter has one of her school dances, so like I'm doing all the mom stuff while she's sick. And then Sunday morning she texts me and it's like, I can't see. I'm like, what? She's like, I cannot see.
That had to be really scary.
Yeah. So we go to the hospital. They check to make sure there's not a detached retina. Then they find a mass in her sinuses, and they're not sure if it's cancerous or if it's an infection. Man. So it went from like scary to like
really scary,
really quick. Like,
and just to be clear, your dad died of cancer.
My dad did.
Yeah. So that's not only scary; it's really personal.
Yeah. And my wife had a lump in her breast within a few months after my dad died of cancer while she was pregnant.
Wow.
So there was a night or two driving back and forth to the hospital doing that, where you start saying like what would my life be like if she doesn't make it? That's really scary. The reason I share this story is not because it's scary, because many people have experienced worse than that. They have lost a loved one. They have lost their spouse, and I am extremely grateful that I did not. And she lost vision in that eye and hasn't regained it yet. And maybe she will, but maybe she won't. But the thing that was incredible was the number of people who reached out through social media, and or my favorite was a gentleman called me, never had talked to him, only knew him through social media. He called my cell phone and said something like, "Hey brother, I'm thinking about you. I just want to say a prayer for you and your family." And he left that on my voicemail, the prayer for me and my wife. And so when
you're giving me chills.
I know. So when people tell me like, we have this tendency to say, "Oh, the world is such a bad place."
Yeah.
I just say, I don't know. Maybe we see a lot of it, but man, there's a lot of good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good. I've been at so many BuildWitt Dirt World events or through social media, and I can tell you there are a lot of good people out there.
I think, you guys say the dirt world, your vision or mission is to make the dirt world a better place. At Blackline, we like to say that our vision is to lift the view of the skilled trades.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is just what you said. I think there are so many people out there that we're not even looking at, that we don't even see. We don't even realize the men and women that do the things that we can live the lives that we live. And like you said, the more social media and the more that I'm going around and talking with people, that even the podcast has brought where I sit down with people, and what an opportunity to sit down with like the CFO of BuildWitt, or I have some other podcasts here that I'm doing, CEOs, chairmans, people who are making decisions, who are willing to sit down and have an hour-long conversation and really get to know who they are. I think, there was a gentleman earlier this year, I know, and he talked to me about a podcast, and I said, why do you like long-form podcasts so much? He goes, well, an hour-long conversation, you can't hide who you are. Mm. He said, a 15-second blurb, yeah, I don't know who you are. But he goes, if I listen to you talk for an hour, about 45 minutes in, the real you comes out one way or the other.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
That's really cool, all the people that rallied around you at that, and just connecting with, there are really good people out there. I know I recently was in a meeting with a bunch of frontline workers, field workers, and they were just, currently right now it's 2024, and I've been talking with a lot of different companies about just how everybody in construction seems more angry than before. And, there's a multitude of reasons for that, whatever. But I was talking with this team of young men, and they felt like, everybody's just trying to blame them for everything, and I'm amazed at how we can call people liars or say this or that when there's so much information swirling around. And I was talking with them about, well, what if we decided to assume good intent, assume best intent, that they didn't mean it that way? Because you know how many times that I've lost my temper and said someone was saying a lie about me only to realize that I didn't have all the information and then realize I was full of it? A lot. And so I was just encouraging them. It was like, sometimes on the job site, we have this fire. And I think that we don't recognize if we would take one or two of the sticks off the fire, it would go out. But instead, we get so offended, we get so angry. And what do we think that's going to do coming in and throwing more logs on the fire? It's going to make it bigger. Mm-hmm. And then instead of working together as a team for a solution, like those guys that you were talking about, like they would have had an opportunity to do that, to throw some logs on the fire and be angry that night, working with that rebar and drilling that thing out. And they would have had a right to. I think that's the biggest thing is you would have a right to, but to do the opposite of that actually takes the logs off the fire, and then you can actually see what the problem is and fix it together.
Yeah, that's good.
So, I mean, I wasn't meaning to get on a soapbox there, other than I think that that's something really in construction right now that we have to really be aware of is not always focusing on our offense, but moving beyond it, because if we focus on the offense, it's just going to explode.
Yeah. So I think what makes it so tricky about the skilled trades is so often there's this relationship and it's been dehumanized, right? What do we call the person we work for? The GC.
Yeah.
What do they call us? The subcon.
Sub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like right there, we like don't even recognize that they're humans.
Yeah.
And so then it's like pretty quickly we begin to just put each other in this shoe. There's a great book called Anatomy of Peace.
Do you realize that this is like your third book review that you're throwing out here on the podcast?
Anatomy of Peace. It's by Arbinger Institute, and I recommend it to all people. And this is why I recommend it. It helps you be aware of things that you do in relationships, and it's not just for work. It helped me realize, hey, man, I do this as a husband all the time. And one of the boxes is the better than box. They talk about how we tend to believe we are better than somebody else, and when we do, we use their own actions against them to justify our position. And that happens in the sub-GC relationship all the time.
Yeah, it does.
Like, no, I know this, and we put them in a box. So anything they do, we try and use that to justify, once again, our position. What's so interesting to me is, I imagine you're in a similar position as me. At one point, I went back and I just said, how many projects...
Well, I'm not 39, I can tell you that.
Yes, but how many projects have I been involved in?
Yeah.
I exceeded 600 that I had been involved in my career. So
wow.
You start thinking about... Now, obviously, my level of involvement changed over the years. At the beginning of my career, it was there doing the work. Then it was supervising the work. Then it was estimating the work. And as an executive, it was like reviewing projections and diving in on problems. And I still reviewed estimates. I still do that quite a bit. But
well, when an estimate is $20 million, it might deserve a look.
Yeah, you start to care. Yeah. I cared all the time. It was something I enjoyed.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is if we could, as subs and GCs, recognize in the time that the best superintendents, the best for a GC, do one or two projects, the operation manager at a electrical subcontractor or a plumbing or a dirt world company of any kind has likely been involved in 36 projects or more.
Yeah. And
we start leveraging that experience for what it is. I think we all start to be better. But for whatever reason, we have a hard time. Like it's like if they're saying, hey, I think you should do it this way, it's like an insult to their intelligence.
Yeah.
And so I started to try and have this dialogue, and it was pretty successful usually. But you would still get those who thought you were trying to be arrogant or pushy. Right. But I just say, like, hey, listen, for what it's worth, we've done this exact project basically 40 times. So when we tell you you don't want to do it in this sequence, it's not because we're smarter. It's because we did it wrong 28 times.
That's the way to say it.
And now we know, because we've done it right 12 times, this is the way you want to do it. So please consider what we're saying here.
Wow. That's huge. And I've tried to have that conversation, but not as well as that. So I'm going to totally steal from that and
Please do.
talk about all the times that I've done it wrong. And that's why, because what you talk about right there, and I think as subs, and I hate to say subs, I like to say specialty contractors. That's just what I like to say. But as specialty contractors, it is our job to help the GC, to help the team. And the importance of recognizing that we can come across, I'm an electrician, so we're actually known as the know-it-alls and the arrogant people in the room. That's what they say. And it's not often true, but the way that we communicates that.
So you start talking about ohms and all this stuff, and we're just like, what the heck are you talking about?
So we've reached that point where I want to ask you a question, and this one is not a softball.
Okay.
So, Randy, what is something that you've made a mistake in that was painful, that you've learned from, that you're willing to share with those who are listening, that they might be able to learn from it? What is something that you'd be, a mistake that you've made that was something that you would want to share with someone else so they don't have to go through that? And we've covered a lot in our conversation here, and I have to tell you, one of the things that I love about this is we just kind of see where it goes. We talked about we might have a plan in the beginning, and that's not where we went. But yet what we talked about, I think, is some essential things that brings real value to people that might listen.
Yeah. This is tough. I'm going to pick something, because
that's fine.
This isn't false confidence when I say I have made an extraordinary amount of mistakes. I truly have. And I am so grateful that I made it through all those mistakes. We had somebody who came to work from us shortly after my dad passed away, and he was an older gentleman, been in the industry for a long time, came from the GC side, was a successful guy on the GC side, and he came in and told us, hey, you should look at running your business this way and that way. And one of the things he said is you should consider revenue per employee as a metric. And at the time, it just seemed foolish.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe for a GC, it makes sense because you're pushing paper and all this stuff, right? So it seemed foolish. Well, 2 or 3 years later, I'm starting to look at the business and try and figure out how we can be better at forecasting all kinds of things.
Right.
And we start to realize there's something to this revenue per employee or, revenue per man hour. So we start digging in and we start realizing revenue per employee is really interesting because most businesses can forecast quite quickly if they're profitable based off of revenue per employee. Obviously, your other expenses vary depending on the trades.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have more material than maybe another trade, or we had more equipment than another trade. But the metric is there, and CFMA produces data on this. If you've never seen any of CFMA's data, plug for them.
Oh, CFMA is great.
Great. They have great data. What is so interesting about it is it helps you understand, am I profitable? But then you can take that metric, and what we started to do is we required all of our project managers to forecast revenue at least 3 months forward. And then we would take the forecasted revenue 3 months forward, and we would divide it by what our target revenue per employee was, top and bottom. And all of a sudden, we started getting banded range of number of employees needed 1 to 3 months forward. And so it took us from being very reactionary to, I need people, to, hey, looks like in 2 to 3 months from now, we're going to need to add maybe 15 people. Now you can start posting in advance. You can start, actually making a plan to hire those people, or have the foresight to say, hey, this job over here is getting ready to finish. If we're not careful and we don't have hours for these 10 people, we're going to need them in a month from now. It's going to cost us a lot of money to go hire them. Where can we utilize them, even if it's a little less productive?
Right.
Because it'll still be cheaper than hiring new people and upskilling them.
That's really smart.
So I think that was a mistake. That mostly the mistake, I guess, would be just sometimes somebody's going to come with you with a new idea, and it's easy to be closed-minded, especially in this case because they came from the GC and I was a specialty contractor, and I'm like, what do they know about what I'm doing?
Yeah.
But turns out they were right. It ended up being a great metric for us. So maybe you're running a successful business. Somebody comes in with a new perspective. Be open.
Yeah.
My dad would always tell this story about I was sitting there at the trucking yard, and they were changing tires. And he's like, you might have been 6 or 8. And this is like in the old days where they use the tire iron, they use some ether, they use their cigarette, set the bead.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't remember the context for it, but he'd always say, you were sitting there and you looked at the 2 guys who'd been changing the tire for, 15 years, and you said, why don't you do it this way? They looked at each other and said, yeah, why don't we do it that way? And it's like, I had no clue, but
Right.
I had a completely different perspective. First of all, I was probably at a different height, right? I'm probably sitting on the ground watching them like monkey around with this. And I'm like, why don't you just do it this way?
Yeah.
And so be open to that perspective. In construction, we talk about the cloud, photometry. It's like that the use of a drone.
Yeah.
It's you take a bunch of pictures, and then that is used to create a cloud. When I was doing that more regularly, the best practice was you want 7 pictures of any one point to get an accurate cloud file. So I tell people all the time, like if you imagine a cactus, one picture straight above.
I've seen a few of them.
Exactly. One picture from straight above, it might look like 3 different objects.
Right.
But you start getting 7 pictures, and now all of a sudden you start seeing every side of it. That's how you make good decisions, informed decisions. When you gather perspective from multiple people within your organization and outside your organization, you're going to make much better decisions. And sometimes it comes from people that maybe it's easy for you to write off because their experience doesn't seem like it matters as much.
Right.
In my case, it was somebody who came from the GC world that I thought, So.
I think that's really important for specialty contractors to be aware of is it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And they're dealing with something that you're not, that there's different perspectives. And that example, I mean, that's just, that's great. So.
Yeah. Well, I just say thanks for having me. I know I was the backup, but
we really ending the podcast already. Yeah.
Well, we really enjoy Blackline. We're excited. We're working on some partnership stuff that we'll hopefully be able to be public about here shortly. So we appreciate what you're doing. Likewise, people could often say like, well, hey, Blackline and BUILDWITT, they're competitors. No, we're not.
No, we're not.
We're both here after how do we make the critical infrastructure for this country continue to operate the way it should, and that's by improving the companies that do it. That's lifting the
lifting the view of the skilled trades,
and
making the dirt world a better place. Yeah. Well, Randy, I so appreciate you stepping up to the line. I appreciate, so much knowledge in this conversation that you shared, and I greatly appreciate that, and just the opportunity to have this conversation.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, we're out.
All right.